blood type A. If you're blood type A, your cells are wearing a specific chemical tag, a small sugar marker called the A antigen. It sits on your red blood cells, but it also covers cells in your stomach, ovaries, and blood vessels. That's the detail researchers keep circling back to, because this same tag shows up in 4 separate health patterns. Start with the stomach. Type A is linked to a 19% higher risk of gastric cancer compared to type O, based on a review of 40 studies and over 2.4 million people. Scientists think the A antigen may make it easier for H. pylori, the bacteria behind most stomach ulcers, to attach to the stomach lining. Years of that irritation can eventually damage cells enough to trigger cancer. The same sugar tag also shows up on ovarian tissue. Genetic studies found type A is tied to a 9% higher risk of ovarian cancer than type O. That's a smaller effect, and researchers are still working out why, but the current theory is that ovarian tumors change how they display these sugar markers, possibly affecting how immune cells recognize them. Then there's the heart. 2 large studies tracking over 89,000 people for decades found non-O blood types had higher rates of coronary heart disease, with type A showing a modest increase. The likely reason is a clotting protein called von Willebrand factor. People with type A tend to have more of it circulating, which can make blood slightly more prone to clotting. Finally, early in the COVID-19 pandemic, researchers noticed type A individuals showed up in infection data far more often than type O individuals. But this association aged like milk, and that link was quickly proven wrong as vaccines and new variants changed the picture. A reminder that not every early finding holds up. None of this means type A guarantees disease. It means one small sugar marker shows up in a surprising number of places your body works, for better or for worse. Blood type B. Type B blood carries its own sugar marker, the B antigen, built when a specific enzyme attaches sugar molecules onto red blood cells. That marker is more common in some populations than others. Roughly 1 in 4 Asian Americans and 1 in 5 Black Americans carry type B blood, compared to a much smaller share of white Americans. And across a large body of research, one health link tied to this blood type stands out as unusually well supported. That link is type 2 diabetes. A 2024 review reanalyzed 270 different blood type health claims pulled from 51 studies. Out of all of them, only one passed the strictest evidence test available, type B and type 2 diabetes. People with type B blood showed about a 28% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes than people with other blood types. Scientists aren't fully certain why, but one theory involves the gut. The same genes that create the B antigen also shape which bacteria can live in your intestines, and gut bacteria play a real role in how your body processes sugar. Pancreatic cancer shows a similar pattern. Across multiple large studies, type B carried the highest risk among all 4 blood types, as much as 72% higher than type O in one analysis of over 107,000 people. Researchers suspect the B antigen may affect inflammation or bacterial activity inside the pancreas itself, though the exact cause is still unknown. There's also a link to urinary tract infections. Certain older studies found people with type B blood were about 50% more likely to develop E. coli urinary infections than other blood types, especially in people whose bodies don't secrete blood type sugars into body fluids. One more connection is still brand new. A 2026 study found a possible link between type B blood and multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children, a rare inflammatory condition affecting children after COVID-19 infection. This finding is early and needs more research before anyone treats it as solid. Taken together, type B's sugar marker doesn't just sit on red blood cells. It quietly shapes gut bacteria, pancreatic tissue, and immune response for reasons science is still working out. Blood type AB. Type AB blood is rare. Fewer than 4% of people in the U.S. have it, and it's unique because it carries both the A and B sugar markers at once. That combination means AB blood cells display more of these markers than any other blood type. Now, one might think that these people might have a combined risk of the disease we've covered in the previous 2 sections, but that's not how it plays out. Across several studies, that extra marker load appears to keep showing up in one category, blood clotting. The clearest AB risk is venous thromboembolism, blood clots that form in veins, sometimes traveling to the lungs and other parts of the body. Non-O blood types, AB included, show 2 to 3 times higher risk of this kind of clot compared to type O, largely due to those same two clotting proteins staying active longer in the blood. Ischemic stroke is another area where AB shows up more often in research. Scientists think the reason connects back to two proteins, von Willebrand factor and factor VIII. Together, they help blood clot at the site of an injury. In non-O blood types, these proteins stick around in the bloodstream longer than they do in type O blood, which may make clotting slightly easier to trigger, including in blood vessels that lead to the brain. Preeclampsia, a dangerous blood pressure condition during pregnancy, was once linked to type AB too, but a large 2025 study of over 20,000 pregnancies found no meaningful difference in preeclampsia rates for AB compared to other blood types. This is a good example of how a promising early finding doesn't always hold up under bigger, better research. Cognitive impairment is another risk that seems to be higher. A large U.S. study called REGARDS followed adults 45 and older for several years. People with type AB blood had about 82% higher odds of developing cognitive impairment than other participants. Researchers also measured a clotting protein called factor VIII, which was noticeably higher in AB participants than in type O participants. But that clotting protein only explained a small part of the link, so it's not the full story. Also worth noting, this finding measured changes in cognitive testing. It is not a confirmed diagnosis, like Alzheimer's disease or dementia, so it shouldn't be overstated. Type AB may be the rarest blood type, but its sugar markers tell a consistent story, a bloodstream that holds onto its clotting power a little longer than most. Blood type O. Type O is the most common blood type in the U.S., making up roughly 37% to 40% of the population. Unlike AB and AB, type O cells don't carry the extra A or B sugar markers. The underlying H antigen stays exposed instead. That difference is often described as making type O the healthiest blood type, but the research tells a more complicated story, less clotting risk, but more vulnerability in other places. The clearest example is cholera. In a controlled study of people exposed to the cholera bacteria, type O individuals made up about 64% of severe cases, compared to only about 36% to 38% of mild or symptom-free cases. Researchers found a likely reason. The cholera toxin has a specific shape that binds unusually well to the exposed H antigen found in type O blood. That stronger attachment may let more toxin enter intestinal cells, worsening the illness. Norovirus, the stomach bug behind most sudden, brutal outbreaks on cruise ships and in schools, shows a related pattern. Norovirus particles latch onto sugar markers in the gut before they can cause infection, and certain strains are especially good at docking onto the same H antigen that defines type O blood. Not everyone with type O reacts to every strain, since a separate genetic trait called secretor status also plays a role. But for the strains that do prefer this docking site, type O offers less resistance. There's a bleeding-related pattern too. People with type O blood have about 20% to 30% lower levels of a clotting protein called von Willebrand factor compared to other blood types. That protein clears from the bloodstream roughly twice as fast in type O individuals. Lower levels mean slightly less effective clotting, which has been linked to a higher chance of delayed bleeding after colon polyp removal, and in some studies, a higher risk of bleeding after childbirth. None of these findings make type O especially dangerous. They show a trade-off, less risk of harmful clotting, but a body slightly more exposed to certain toxins, viruses, and bleeding events. Rh status. The plus or minus after your blood type isn't a fifth disease category, it's a separate marker called Rhd. A positive and A negative share the same A antigen. They only differ on whether their red cells carry this one additional protein. Rhd's real health impact centers on pregnancy, not a long list of diseases. If an Rhd negative mother carries an Rhd positive baby, her immune system can build antibodies against Rhd after exposure. In a later pregnancy, those antibodies can cross into the placenta and attack the baby's red blood cells. Today, this is largely preventable with a preventive treatment called anti-D immunoglobulin given during and after pregnancy. Some studies have looked at Rhd and infections, including COVID-19, but the results have been inconsistent and haven't held up as reliable predictors of disease severity. Beyond Rhd, blood carries dozens of lesser-known antigen systems, including one called PIG-Z, officially recognized only in 2025. Most of these matter for one reason: finding compatible blood for transfusions, especially for people with rare combinations. One more thing worth knowing: in Japan and parts of East Asia, Blood type is popularly linked to personality. Type A is supposedly careful. Type B is free-spirited. AB is unpredictable. And O is bold. It's a fun cultural idea, showing up in matchmaking apps and TV shows. But there's no real scientific evidence behind it. Blood type shapes molecules on your cells, not your character. If you like this video and want to learn more about the human body, check out these other videos.